Hello and welcome back to my channel. I'm Ronit J, a fantasy author and a filmmaker, and this is my top 10 TV shows I watched this year. These are not shows that necessarily released in 2025, but these are shows I watched in 2025. So, that being said, let's get to it. Before I begin my top 10, there are a few honorary mentions that deserve attention that almost made it to the list, and they are Invincible Season 3, Silicon Valley, Common Side Effects, Murderbot, Adults, and Party Down. Now to my top 10. At number 10, we have Peacemaker Season 2. Peacemaker Season 2 was a significant improvement on Season 1. Except for the finale, which I did have a problem with, the entire Season 2 was very relevant politically speaking, because to me this was a show about feeling disillusioned in a world that's constantly changing, and why these disillusioned people end up subscribing to fascist ideologies. Watch the show and you will know why I'm saying that. I mean, it was brilliantly done. Every single episode had me reflecting on what this show is trying to say, what this means for our world, even because we've seen James Gunn and we've seen how he doesn't hold back on commenting on real world problems, right? And Peacemaker is no different. It was surprisingly profound and just outright entertaining. The dark humor, the interpersonal relationships, the character moments that exist throughout, it was trademarked James Gunn, and it was what you expect, and then a lot more than that. At number 9, we have a series that I did not expect to like this much, but I did, and it's Delhi Boys. This is a black comedy series that follows these two Pakistani boys whose father has a pickle empire, except the pickle isn't what makes money, it's drugs and crime. After the father passes, these two inherit that empire, and that leads to a comedy of errors that is one of the best things I've seen this year. From what I know, Pakistani and Indian cultures are pretty similar because we used to be one country at one time. And the exploration of this Desi culture was quite realistic and not stereotypical like we've seen in the past. These characters felt like real people, and this absurd situation that they are in was hilarious. I am ranking this one above James Gunn's Peacemaker Season 2, and that should tell you how good this show is. At number 8, we have something that's not really a surprise, and that's Adolescence. It's a Netflix miniseries, 4 episodes long, and each episode is an hour long, one take. I'm not even going to brush on the technical achievements of this show because that's just mind blowing that they did it, and not just once, they did it 4 times. I will admit though, like the gimmick of the one take worked brilliantly for episodes 1 and 4, but it didn't do that much for me for episodes 2 and 3. However, the exploration of child psychology and like incel culture and why it persists in modern day, it was quite uncomfortable to watch and yet extremely thrilling and captivating. Like another show that's very relevant, that presents what it wants to say in a way that's visually stunning, cinematically appealing, and for a Netflix show, it was very nuanced. It's definitely one of the best 4 hours of TV that you can watch this year. At number 7, we have Severance Season 2. I think Severance was one of my most anticipated shows of the year, and it delivered. Now, I do have some complaints with the show, but for the most part, I think it did a good job of building on everything that made season 1 great, and expanding on this lore of the Egan family and what the severance procedure is. What is this dystopian sci-fi world that we're living in? Because the more you start looking at this world, you realize it's not just our normal world with that one added element of the severance procedure. There is a lot more that's wrong, and the more you piece the puzzle together, the more absurd and yeah, there are entire threads on subreddit dedicated to dissecting what this show is and what this world is, and the way the show is made, it warrants all that attention. I'm glad that season 2 was not disappointing, because that's kind of been the streak with OTT platforms, where the first season is great, but then there is a significant downfall in later seasons. White Lotus was the worst example of it this year, if you ask me. But Severance, no, it delivered, and I hope we don't have to wait years for the next season because I need answers. At number six is another Apple TV sci-fi dystopian show called Pluribus by Vince Gilligan, the brains behind Better Call Saul and Breaking Bad. Pluribus was the most anticipated show of the year for me because I read stories about the hive mind concept. This one didn't stand out to me as much in the initial episodes, but as the episodes progressed, I'm starting to love this series a lot more than I did in the first few episodes. It retains a lot of the aesthetics that Gilligan used for his previous shows, and that is one of its biggest strengths because visually and aesthetically this show stands out. And how Ray Seahorn's performance as Carol Sturka is, she deserves an award for this because she's such an unlikable curmudgeon that I would also be like if I were in her place. And to have such a protagonist and still tell a story that's this captivating in a setting that's so absurd and yet feels so very real, that takes a lot of creativity and a lot of skill, and Pluribus delivers. At number 5, we have Patal Lok season 2. I don't know why Amazon didn't market this show enough because Patal Lok is one of the best shows to come out of Amazon Prime Video India. Let me be honest, season 2 is a lot better than season 1. It doesn't overdo the things that made season 1 great. It actually tells you a full story, a relatively self contained story that almost makes season 2 a standalone watch. And the politics of this is also quite relevant to the political scenario of, I don't know if you can hear the police siren, but that's good timing. Patalok is genuinely one of the best things I watched this year. Visually stunning, narratively it's near perfect. I do have a few complaints with it, but for the most part, this was compulsively bingeable. That's what I'll call it. I don't know if a third season is in store for us, but if we retain the same makers, Avinash Arun, I am going to watch it the day it drops. At number 4, we have Last Man, a French animated show that is unfortunately not talked about enough. I do want to add a disclaimer here, this is not a show that's easy to access, and I watched it in French with French subtitles because originally I just wanted to practice my French, but I heard a lot of good things about this show, and what an experience. Holy fuck. Last Man has some of the most unique visuals that I've ever seen in an animated show. The first season, it has this breakneck pacing that is relentless, and you can't help but binge on this show. And season 2 changes the narrative treatment a lot in the sense that the episodes are much longer, but they're all self contained episodes, just 6 of them, but all 6 episodes together form this massive narrative that's a sequel to this first season. The writing is stunning, the visuals are mind blowing, and Last Man, especially season 2, is a masterclass in writing that I believe every student of writing, especially cinema and screenplay, you need to watch this show. Find a way to access it. I think season 1 has English subtitles, but season 2 doesn't. Get your hands on a copy if you can and watch it because it's one of the best things I've watched this year. Also, this animated show is a prequel to a comic book series of the same name, but I haven't yet read the comic book series because I can't find a copy. The show, however, lives up to all the hype. At number 3, we have South Park season 27-28. I'm just going to say this, if only the laws in India could permit comedians and creators to make content like this that makes absolute fun of the people who are ruining the country for us. I started writing a review for this, but it ended up just devolving into a rant because South Park so beautifully encapsulates everything that is wrong with America in the time of Trump's second administration. And as funny it is also quite thought provoking and brave for mocking these very powerful people in such insulting ways. I wish someone could make something like this in India at the scale and at the low insulting manner that South Park does, because there is a lot of gold in India as well in terms of everything wrong with society and politics. I'm gonna stop talking right here because I don't want to start ranting. Number two is one of the most depressing things I've seen in my life. It's so difficult to watch that I had to watch the whole thing one episode at a time. Because I couldn't digest the whole thing. It's so depressing that I don't know if I'll ever rewatch this show. Because if you thought Grave of the Fireflies was depressing, or if you thought that BoJack Horseman can leave you with a bad feeling, this show is going to wreck you. And that's Takopi's Original Sin. It's a 6 episode long anime, and it is being hailed as one of the best things released this year, and with good reason. Just the absolute pathos that each episode exudes, just the extremes to which the narrative takes us with these children and what they are suffering psychologically, emotionally. It's one of the most poignant, heartbreaking shows I've watched this year. The ending is kind of bittersweet in a positive way, but that doesn't negate the absolute crushing experience that the first 5 episodes are. And it really makes you think what children are going through, especially in the modern age, with this explosion of content and this dissociation that they are probably going to deal with because of so much of media exposure. Also, fun fact, Takopi's Original Sin, the review for Takopi's Original Sin on my website is the most viewed page on my website. I would like to believe it's because I wrote a really good review, but I'm guessing it's partly because there's not a lot available about this show. So if you are looking for a hidden gem, this is it. This and Last Man. Check them out. They are truly two of the best shows I watched this year. And now for number one, this is of course my bias, and you're free to disagree, but for me, number one is an Apple TV show called The Studio by Seth Rogen and Evan Goldberg. I'm a filmmaker. I have been on set. I have experienced the chaos of making films, be it low scale indie films or even big budget sets for ads and whatnot. The studio captures this spirit of filmmaking in all its honesty and absurdity. Just that first episode where Martin Scorsese breaks down crying, that's where I knew I'm going to love this show. Each episode is full of long takes. Each episode is this tension filled hour or 40 minutes or however long the episodes are. They're just full of tension, fast paced, absurd characters just talking and fighting and trying to solve a problem that is exacerbated partly because of stupidity, partly because that's just how humans are, especially in a creative field where everyone is a narcissist, everyone is egotistical, and everyone wants to get their own way done. Studio executives, studios, and the modern state of content, because that's what cinema is devolving into. I think the studio does a fantastic job of encapsulating all of this within its sphere of comedy drama, and just the meta humor and all the many cameos and references to movies. This was an absolute delight to watch, especially for me. So I'm ranking this as the best show I watched this year. Do you agree or disagree with my list? You probably will disagree because that's what this world is devolving into. But whatever it is, let me know in the comments below. The engagement helps. What were your top 10 or top 5 or top 26, whatever you want to rank? Let me know in the comments and I'll be sure to check them out. That's it for this video. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you have a good year end, and I'll see you next year. Subscribe to the channel for more such content and follow me for more. Until next time.